guys, and welcome back to part 2 of our vlog here at Selangor. So today we're starting off at the front 9 of this golf course, but it is my back 9, so I'm just gonna consider it hole 10. Hole 10 is a par 4. There are bunkers lined down the left side and there is nothing much on the right side, especially from the position of the tee box today. But you do have to pay attention to the tee box because if it is pushed forward, those trees on the right side do come into play. Unfortunately, I hit it a little bit left, but I got lucky and got in between those bunkers. So one thing I wanted to point out is with regards to what I just said as well. If you are used to playing a golf course, it's very important to pay attention to where the tee box positions are. So for today, the round that I was playing, the tee boxes here at Selangor was actually pushed all the way back to the back of the blue tees. So most of the time when I play here, because it is during the weekdays, usually they do not push the tee boxes all the way behind. Obviously, the tee box being at the front of the tee box and the back of the tee box can make a difference, especially with regards to your landing area and hazards that might come into play. So this is especially important for courses that you play often, that you are used to playing. Sometimes you just take these things for granted and you forget about it and you wonder how you end up in a hazard that you usually do not reach, or you're not able to carry a hazard that you usually can. So always pay attention to the positions of the tee boxes. If you have a rangefinder, that obviously would help with this. Anyway, let's move on to hole 2, which is another par 4. Hole 2 is a pretty severe dogleg ride, so hitting a good tee shot here is important. You want to make sure that you choose a good aim, that you do not run out of fairway down the left side, but also that you do not cut it too much down the right side, because if you were to overcut it or overfade it into those trees on the right side, you will definitely have a hard time getting on the green. So a good tee shot here is very important to give yourself good position to approach the green. Speaking of rangefinders, I actually did not have a rangefinder on this shot because I ran out of battery. And I definitely overestimated the downhill. So on this hole, actually, you do want to make sure that you land a little bit short though, because usually everything bounces over and this green is usually pretty hard, which is kind of a theme here at Selangor. If you did not watch my first part of this vlog, the greens in general are pretty hard, but as you can see here, I think more clearly, the greens were pretty sandy today, so they were definitely a little bit more receptive than usual. But on a normal basis, for this green, you definitely want to just land it at the front of the green and let it roll out, because anything past the center is definitely going to go over. Hole 12 is a par 3 and it is a pretty tricky par 3. Today the pin position was behind left, so the pin position here makes a huge difference because there's a huge slope right in the center of the green. Basically, if you can see those two bunkers, anything landing in between those two bunkers, obviously within distance of the green, is going to kick right because of the slope. So when the pin is behind, it's actually more advisable to miss it left because everything kicks right. So when you miss it left, there's actually a chance that you're going to kick back onto the green. Whereas if you miss it right, you are definitely going down that huge slope, which is not an ideal place to be because it is a pretty difficult putt. Moving on to hole 13, which is an uphill par 4. One of the things that you realize here in Selangor is that the landing area of your driver is very important and can really make a difference in where you end up. For this fairway, it looks pretty wide, but everything kicks towards the right side of the fairway. So ideally, you actually want to go a little bit more towards the left side. I think you can also tell on the left side there is a slope, so there is a higher chance for you to even hit it left and go to the center of the fairway. Whereas if you were to miss this right, you could either be in that bunker right, which is not a good place to be, or you might even be in those trees, depending on how hard you hit it. For this approach shot, it is pretty uphill, so usually you do want to take about half a club more. However, as I said, usually the greens here are pretty hard, and if you were to land it past the center of the green, it will bounce over. Obviously for today, I should have taken into consideration that it was very sandy, so I could have been more aggressive with this approach shot, but I just missed it and didn't leave myself in a very good position. For this chip shot, because it is a little bit of an elevated front, what I wanted to do was actually bounce it up there and let it roll out, because usually that is what would work best on this green. However, for today, it just definitely did not roll as much as I wanted it to. should have been able to make adjustments faster than I am right now, but the greens on the front and the back nine were also quite different. The ones on this nine are a lot sandier than they were on the front nine. Moving on to hole 14. Hole 14 and 15 are twin par 5s. I love these two par 5s because they are very challenging, but they can also be very rewarding. So hole 14 over here, or hole 5 as you can see from the back. As I said, this is the front nine of the golf course. So it requires a pretty good tee shot. Over here, obviously you can't see the fairway, but the right side is basically all trees and the left side is trees as well. So it does require a pretty accurate tee shot. But it is downhill, so if you do hit a good tee shot, there is a big chance that you're going to be able to go for the green in 2.
Yeah, this one is nice.
As I said, after a good tee shot, there is a chance that you're going to be able to go for the green in 2. So basically on this one, there is nothing down the right side, but there is a water hazard down the left side. The pin today is left as well, so keeping this right is very important. As you can tell, I'm also standing on the slope, so I was kind of compensating because I wanted to hit a bit of a draw, but I ended up thinning it a little bit, so it obviously did not get to the green, but it's still not a bad shot considering it's my second shot on a par 5. As I said, we've got twin par 5s here, and as they're side to side, obviously one of them being downhill means the other one is uphill. For this hole, everything kind of kicks towards the left side, but obviously there are trees down the right side and there's a bunker down the left side as well. You do want to kind of keep it a little bit towards the right side of this fairway, but just take into consideration that from the right side it is harder to approach the green, just because those trees are pretty high as you can tell. So if you do miss it right, chances are you're just going to be laying up, which is not a bad thing because it is a par 5, but if you do want to give yourself a chance to go for the green, you do have to hit it more towards the center left.
Oh my god.
This par 4 is a pretty difficult par 4, especially from this tee box, just because this fairway is pretty elevated, so to carry that bunker on the left is not the easiest from this tee box. However, this hole is a little bit of a dogleg left. Everything does kick left, but if you do go too far right, chances are you're still going to be stuck in those trees. So a good tee shot is definitely required on this hole. In addition to having a pretty difficult tee shot, the second shot isn't very easy as well. There is a huge slope right in the center of the green, so whenever the pin is on the right side, you have to aim it pretty far right, if not everything just kicks left. So this hole I feel like is very deceiving because it's not very long, it looks very friendly, but actually there's a lot of tricks to it, so getting a birdie on this hole is very difficult. I think a par on this hole itself is a good score.
Gosh.
So an unfortunate 3-putt, but as I said, the green is pretty tricky, so I think if anything that is not a bad hole to make a bogey on. Let's move on to the next hole, which is a par 3. For this par 3, you definitely want to keep it towards the right side of the screen, because if you hit it towards the left side, there is a giant slope all the way down towards the cart path. So you definitely want to stay on the right side of the screen. I would say usually the green is also very hard, but obviously, like you already know, the green today is very sandy, so it's obviously a lot more receptive. But on a general basis, you definitely do not want to hit this over. So we've reached the final hole, which is a par 4. This par 4 bunkers down the right side. Generally, you do want to avoid those bunkers because it is hard to approach those greens with those trees down the right side. However, just remember that this fairway also kicks left, so if you were to hit this left, you are going into those trees down the left side. In general, I would say that driving is pretty important here at Sri Selangor, as I think you can tell because there are a lot of slopes on the fairways, a lot of undulation. So it's not only important to know where you're going to land it, but also important to make sure that you land it on the right slopes, just so that your ball is working to your advantage and not against you. I actually hit a pretty bad tee shot, and as I told you, the right side bunkers were definitely the ones to avoid, and that's exactly where I went into. You can't even see the pin from here because it is tucked right, and basically it's right behind those trees. From my lie here too, I was just trying to make solid contact with the ball. Just because obviously if the ball is way below my feet, I do not have a solid stance, which is very important for bunker shots. So I took more club here just so that I could make sure that I could get the ball out there and as close to the green as possible. So that's it for today's episode, guys. I think you can clearly tell why I named it Rollercoaster Golf. It was exactly what I was playing today, but it wasn't a bad round. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you liked it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and turn on the notification bell so that you don't miss an episode of Golf with Jen.